Well, Joy was gonna sing us a song. Joy, do you want to guide us into like maybe like a little meditative state and then sing us a song?
Sure. Yeah. Ooh. So let's all take some deep breaths together. And on the exhale, just feel your body sinking into the earth. Everything that you have lifted up, just like give it a little shake if it needs a little help letting go, but just encourage everything that's not relaxed and surrendered into the earth. Just give it a chance to let go. So as you're breathing in, just really feeling the light of source entering your body, and as you exhale, allowing anything that feels sticky or heavy or dark or damp just to sink out of your body and just drip into the earth. And if you want to make some sound with that exhale, this like sigh of relief, just like let yourself get really gooey. And following that dripping down, if you can sense from your tailbone just this ruby red cord just sinking down into the center of the earth, this dragon's tail just dropping down into the center of the earth, also through your 2 feet. So we're creating a ruby pyramid down into the center of the earth. And as soon as you find that molten, warm, delicious center, feel that rising, that immediate rising, the Gaia just rising up to meet you and fill you with her light, love, energy. And feeling that brewing all the way up your legs, up your root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, into your heart, meeting this light love coming from above through your crown, third eye, throat chakra, into your heart, mixing it. And if you feel like it, reach out your arms and let that energy just stretch out your arms out through your neck, like really stretching your spine up and your arms out, rooting all the way down at the same time. We're becoming the tree of life. And if you feel like it, just take a little shake. And at any point during this call, if you feel like you need to come back to that, feel free to take a breath, take a stretch, take a little shake, move your body if you need it, touch your body if you need it. Biofeedback is so nice. And feel the deliciousness of being in body on Gaia. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm going to sing a little song. It's really simple. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Please prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
Thank you, my friend.
Beautiful, Joy. Thank you for sharing.
What a great way to kick us off. So we're on our second recording here of the Lightweavers podcast, and we have a special guest with us today who goes by the name Angela of Earth. And Angela, if you want to just maybe start, just tell us how you're doing today, and whatever you feel called to share to introduce yourself a little.
Yeah. Hi, I'm really happy to be with you guys today. I'll just start with the present. That song just brought my emotions to the surface very much, as only a true sister could do for me. Thank you, Joy. I have a lot of feelings, gosh, as we all do during these times. Gosh, roller coaster every single moment, every single day. It's epic transformation continually at all times. And so I'm noticing on certain days that flow will kind of build up unbeknownst to me. Like it has got, the flow is caught on the rocks that are almost a complete dam, and it's building and building and building. And that song just brought it forth to my eyeballs and face, which is always a sure sign that it's coming out of you. And that's where I am today. I'm just like, I'm loving so much the fact that we are on so many Zoom meetings and so many internet meetings, but you notice things more than you do otherwise. And I'm noticing how all of my beautiful sisters and brothers and friends, when you feel something, a vibration or a word that is just healing to you through the internet, somehow you make this, it's a universal sound. We all go, and I have started noticing that, and I take it as we are reaching each other. We are reaching each other through these insane systems, and we're somehow finding it. See, now you're not going to not notice it. It got really bad. When you just, the videos are popping up in the background on your whatever kind of feed, and the red table, I think it is, that the Smith family does. And instead of the they're like, yeah. It's like an hour of this like heightened reaction, and it's joyful.
You're on a wonderful level that is just so beautiful to listen to. I love listening to the red table.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, I don't know what this is.
So
it's the Smith family. It's Will Smith, Jada Smith.
It's circled more amongst the females, the matriarch.
Right.
So it's Jada Pinkett Smith's mother, and then her daughter, and then of course like Will comes in. But it's wonderful. It is wonderful.
It just makes you feel like, I don't know, for me, sometimes I get very serious. And I think I was talking to Suzie about this recently, that it just all, as lovely as this journey is, sometimes the spiritual pathway becomes work. No matter how much you love it, it becomes work. And so to hear, rather than my typical calm, to just be like, yeah, that kind of energy is necessary.
Yeah, we basically have to cheer each other on right now.
Oh yeah. Except you don't want to overstep your bounds if someone really doesn't need a cheerleader on that day. But yeah, we're all in different spaces, and I think calling one another in this circle has been lovely, because we're, up on one day when our friend is needing the up, and it's all harmonious in the end.
Yeah. I find that happens a lot, like with my partner too. It's like if I'm having a tough day, he's always the more solid one, and if he's having a tough day, I'm actually somewhat stable.
So let's talk about this in quarantine, because my partner and I have the same thing, and sometimes it's nice and sometimes you get resentful that they're not where you are. Anyone?
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Like, I finally am well, and I'm well, my brain is like, yes, you're well. And then they walk in and they're like, rah, and they just kind of vomit this energy from their day. And you're like, it was just so close. I was so close.
It's like, it ain't over yet.
No, it's never over. That's what I'm realizing. It's never over. It's a journey, always.
I had to laugh last week, or maybe the week before. I was taking a moment with an I Ching oracle deck that I have, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna pull a card, it's gonna lift my spirits. I picked a card, flipped it over, and it said the worsening. And I was Dave, it says basically don't do anything, because everything's just gonna keep getting worse and there's nothing I can do. And we laughed about it and then put it away, and I was like, well, that's not gonna be true. It's been a rough week, I'm gonna tell you.
Oh.
Last thought today, we're like, I think we finally hit the bottom, right? It's gotta be the bottom today.
Oh gosh.
The card.
I know, right? It's just, yeah, roller coaster, I think, is the perfect terminology. That's what I've been saying a lot too. It's just,
If that roller coaster had twists and turns that you never anticipated, and changes of the laws of physics, if that roller coaster somehow lets you float in the air for one aspect of it, and then you drop down and you're like buried under 100,000 million tons of weight, if that was the roller coaster, then
and then you jump into another dimension where nothing is as it was yesterday, and like none of your memories actually make sense to anyone else because you're literally in another timeline. Like,
yep.
What?
Yep. Or you wake up in the morning from visions, definitely knowing for sure that this life is not the real one, that you just left the real one. And then you have to take your dog out, and somehow you get back to your situation,
I don't know, girls. Sometimes it feels like a really exciting roller coaster, and can I get off of this? Like, I just feel like I come right back to where I started, and it can just feel like, how do I break these patterns? How do I want a new ride. I want a new story,
Yeah.
That's that roller coaster I'm thinking, because we've been flying kites lately. And I'm thinking more of like a kite, of just like how it just, the wind takes it in this completely different direction. And then it's like, it's up to you to really try and control it, which is so hard to do, because it's going to go in whichever direction the wind is going to take it, and then kind of like scoop under, and then like go like do all these like little twists and turns, and then like go hide behind that tree, like whatever it may be. Like, it's not just here, right? It's
Yeah. And with a kite too, it's cool because it's not, you can't control it. Your job is to counter it. Your job is to be the opposite of it. As the wind pulls it that way, you must be the exact opposite in the other direction. So it's a total dance.
Yeah. I felt like that way while I was trying to control it yesterday, and I'm just like, and I've been feeling a surge of emotions lately, and it's just been really interesting. So yeah, just kind of like also in that moment of trying to focus on attempting to control this and keep it in the air, you know, I'm noticing like, okay, I'm trying to keep my head above water right now, and I feel like I'm sinking, right? And so it's just like how much control, again, that resistance that we were talking about a little while ago, the resistance that we put on ourselves to like get comfortable with change, or like let change, like let it happen, right? We need to like let go sometimes and surrender to what's going to happen, because we don't always have that control.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me that you're saying like you like the difference between like struggling to remain above water and feeling like you're sinking, and then like the surrender part of that would be like, okay, if I surrender right now and I do sink and I allow myself to be like, okay, change is happening, I'm gonna breathe underwater. It's like, can we surrender into such a big transformation? Can we trust the ride that we're on and trust that we are on it until the end, whatever that means? And we chose to get on this ride. And anyway, I'm just seeing this really powerful image of like, we're struggling to stay above water, we're struggling to, you know, I gotta fight to stay above, but like, what if the point is to let go and let the really big, like that's just a much bigger twist and turn, and it's not really an ending, it's like a whole new beginning, it's a whole new story. Like that's not just, yeah, I don't know, that's just really wild image to me.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that in this time period during these, I don't even want to say any words that instill fear in anyone, but you know, this time period that we're going through where we're all separated from one another and have complete uncertainty in all systems that we thought we had certainty in. You know, it's a lovely practice and mantra to know that you must surrender, but many humans are feeling like they did not have a choice whatsoever. That free choice, that sovereign, holy thing that we have, that is our free choice. You know, and we know if we allow ourselves to be ethereal and to be in that space, we know that we can choose to not fight it. But so many humans, I would, you know, wager to say the majority of humans on the planet are feeling like none of this is their free choice. And that is instilling a lot of fear in a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that you put it that way too, because I've been noticing this huge difference, like a vibrational difference. Like where I'm living right now, there's a lot of density and there's a lot of, yeah, fear and confusion and, you know, I don't know, limitations, like apparent limitation. And I know that I'm here for a specific reason. I'm healing my own lineage, but I also feel like even just being here, shining my light, like I'm offering something. I don't know. I just always wonder, like, what else can I do? Like, how else can I serve? How else can I help? And also, I feel like the people that are in the most fear, like when you're in such a contracted place, even if you are asking for help, it's not necessarily easy to receive that help if it's offered to you, or if it's available, or if it's all around you, you can't necessarily see it. So
You mean if you're not in a space where you can even acknowledge or see the offered help?
yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because Joy,
Suzie, I think you're having mic troubles.
Yeah, it's going in and out a bit.
even when you sent me that message today, how can I support you? You know, I might be an internet thing. Is it better now? No.
Yes. Maybe not. Internet land, we're having technical difficulties.
I'm gonna get a piece of paper and write things.
That sounds exciting.
I don't have paper, so maybe I'll just listen this time.
That sounds better. No, keep saying what you were saying. Just repeat what you were going to say.
When you were talking about, I'm not supposed to be saying anything. I'm going on mute.
Oh my gosh. But you look so beautiful.
She really does. She's so radiant today.
I know you are beautiful. And I don't, and just to say, it does help if you turn the video off. The video takes up more bandwidth than the audio does. So if you do want to speak, you might consider turning off your video to speak or something. I don't know. That might be complicated or whatever, but that's an option too. Just so
Can I just say I love that you're giving technological advice. I'm just going to like cap this by saying every spirit worker that I know is like suddenly really good at technology. And like, I never would have thought, like, my wife, Jazz, when I met her, had like a Nokia phone, like a brick. Do you remember?
phone.
I was like, this is 2011. How do you even still have that? And now she's like, social media wizard. You know, she's like giving me advice on the internet land. And I'm like, wow, okay, so we're smart. We can do these things. It's our choice. We have to choose to want to learn it. And when we realized this is our only way to connect, we all learned it real quick.
Oh, yeah.
We were literally pushed into this, and you really had to like kind of take on some of the things that were changing, whether you wanted to or not, because this was the only way we could really communicate, right?
Yeah, I didn't, and I didn't want to. I really didn't. I fought it for so long.
We were joking about when I was growing up, my brother studied like digital media and was always like the first to get new tech stuff. And I would always ask him for help, like, can you help me figure out this thing on the computer? He's like, Eliza, literally, when you ask me questions, I Google it and then I tell you the answer. And, you know, you have figured out, it's like, Google it, just go ask. And now with YouTube and everything like that, it's like, it is empowering. It's like, oh, I can just find the answers right on there. You know, how do I use Zoom? How do I increase bandwidth? What is bandwidth?
What is bandwidth?
Very empowering though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but infuriating when you hit a hold up.
Oh, for sure.
When you're like, for me, because when I haven't introduced myself yet. Can I do that for a moment? we just got going. Hi, I'm Angela. I am a channel for differently dimensional beings. I don't call them higher dimensional because they are working through us at all times, and you know, higher instills this feeling and vibration that they are somehow all knowing, which as they incorporate in our daily lives, we're just so seamless that it makes more sense to me to not refer to them as higher dimensional. But interestingly, back in November of 2019, this was when I got my push to start working with technology. And I was not about it at all. I was getting messages from my guides that were saying, you will start an internet community. And for weeks, I was like, nah, I will not. I will not. I will not. I will not. And it's been quite a process. And I worked on that for months before this shutdown, before this quarantine. And by the time the quarantine actually came, I was ready. I was ready to speak to the people who needed to hear the messages. And that was incredible. I was just, you know, you don't need validation, but for humans, for me, that was a lovely piece of validation, that when I felt a message, you know, it could be like 11 p.m. and I know that I need to be present somewhere. This message wants to come through. I now have the tools to click, 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 and speak. And I'm there. I'm in the living room with the people, and yeah, it's amazing.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it was really interesting this year too. I also felt like there's something about the Mighty Networks platform that was like, I knew I was supposed to create this community. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew it was really important to be online. and I took like a 6-week course that started, I think like middle of February and ended like right around the time that COVID started and everything. So it was just, yeah, it was just like fascinating.
Wow.
For everything. Yeah.
Wow. That's a blessing.
Yeah. I'm so curious to know more about your history, like how you started channeling or knowing that you were a channel, and then being able to share it with others. I know I've had a session with you and it was incredibly helpful. And it was recorded and I've been able to listen to it several times and get even more nectar out of it. So I'm just curious if you could tell us a little bit about the backstory.
Yeah. So I have these guides. They're pretty cool. Uh, I have always had a sense of family around me. I can always remember not knowing how to articulate it necessarily, but even my mother has recently viewed some of my channelings for the first time. It's like a second coming out, if you will. I'm married to a woman, so I had to come out the first time, and now as like someone who channels spirit or other entities, I had to come out as well. And when she watched one of my YouTube videos for the first time, she's very talkative and she loves to share, and she's just this beautiful, bright spirit. But I fully expected her after like 30 seconds in to stop and want to talk to me about it. And she didn't. It was a 20-minute video and she locked in and she stayed with the vibration of the channeled message that was coming through. And it was the most quiet I've seen her maybe ever, at least in recent memory. And after the video was over, she said, as I was playing, I remembered all of these times when you were a child talking to yourself in the corner. And she told me I had this, if you remember that Legos used to come in a big bucket. Do you remember that? I had a big yellow bucket. That was my Lego bucket. And apparently I used to sit in the corner, put it over my head, and just talk, like babble, age 2, whatever it was. It wasn't sentences. But she said, as she was watching my channeling a few weeks ago, that she just had all these memories of this vibration coming through. And she was also curious. It was different than coming out as being gay. She was actually like more engaging in this way. Yeah, but I of course, had that feeling as a child, and then consciously the first time I ever knew something was special, I can remember the exact dance class. I grew up in competitive dancing, and that had a duality to it because we would compete and learn routines, but we also had these super powerful classes where we would bring in very spiritual choreographers that would work with us and guide us through these movements. And when I was 11 years old, I was in a class with a very wonderful teacher that was just holding the space so well. It was such a womb, a dance womb that she had created for this class. And at the time, I'm feeling all my feelings. My parents are divorcing. I don't live in my house that I grew up in anymore. I am having, all the feelings that an 11-year-old of a divorced family is feeling. And it was my turn to step forward and perform the choreography. I think I was with maybe 4 other dancers in this group. And I'm performing, it's a Sarah McLachlan song. It's called Full of Grace. And it is so lovely. But I'm performing the dance, and she sings in the lyrics, "In all of the darkness, I feel like letting go." And then there's 2 piano notes. It goes bing, bing. I'm completely not good at singing, but bing, bing, 2 piano notes. And I held my hands over my head, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze really tight. And on the 2 releases, release the right hand, release the left hand, and I exhaled. And in that exhale, on the piano note, something shifted about everything around me. And I don't mean like metaphorically, I mean light started behaving differently. The floor disappeared, the walls disappeared. It was white light all everywhere. It was like I was standing on nothing, like I was nothing. And at the same time, this just vomit of energy started coming through me, and I was crying and I was shaking. And I remember the dance teachers, hugging me and patting me on the back. Wow, you performed so well. That was such a good dance. And I don't think that they could even articulate what was happening. I was just crying and shaking as a little 11-year-old and trying to process what I had felt, but it felt wonderful. It felt wonderful. I felt held for the first time in a long time. I think I had been feeling, the neglect, not having the same parental attention that I had all my young childhood, and something about this warm family space. It was like a depth of family that I had never felt. And I'm close with my family. I'm like one with my mother, but this is very different. And I became obsessed with this feeling. I really did. I didn't get into typical trouble in high school. I didn't do the drinking house party thing. I would dance all the time. And actually the most trouble I got into was breaking into the high school at midnight to use the dance studio. And I set off the alarms, and I just knew the dance studio had a door that opened to the outside. You didn't have to go through the main school. You could just open the door straight into the dance studio. And I knew during the day, if I would just set a little stick in the lock before I left school, that it wouldn't completely click and lock all the way. And so I had this plan. I have to just dance it out. God, so emo as a child. I had to just dance it out. And I had done it before. This is what was confusing. I had done it before. And then one night I had to use the bathroom. And so I decided to go through the main hall of the school. And that's when I tripped an alarm. And the cops showed up, and they called my mom, and she was like, really? You're gonna, like, this is the trouble you're gonna get into. You broke in to dance the night away by yourself in the dark, no lights. Yeah. That was my jam. And so I think because that love was so deep, I had to mesh this kind of material world of what a dancer should be. I was in training to be a professional dancer. And so all of my mentors and guides, of course, they saw how much I loved doing this. And they said, you must do this professionally. This is what you will do. And that translates in my decade and in my sphere, it translated to move to Hollywood, audition for music videos. And, I'm seeing like your recognition as how wrong that would be for me to audition for like a Pitbull music video. Like, the requirements are like a thong and stilettos. And I graduated high school early, and I went to Hollywood to do that, to dance. And thankfully I got a job fairly quickly that was not that. I ended up performing for Cirque du Soleil, and I moved to Vegas. And that was more of a family vibe where I got to explore my creativity. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a very cool time. But I also still, I learned, I got to be a part of the creation of a new show, and that was wonderful. It was like the best costume designers, the best choreographers, the best musicians, and we were all in this sacred space in Montreal, and it was like, this breath, this heartbeat of creativity for nearly a year. We were working on creating this show, and the choreographer, there's only 12 dancers in it, so it was very intimate, and the choreographer listened to us. He listened to each of our bodies, and he let us kind of create our own characters based on what we were feeling. And gosh, it was such a beautiful experience. And then we moved the show to Vegas, and the creative team left and the corporate team came in. And as you can imagine, the money-making aspect of things started to, churn, and decisions were made to just like murder certain dance routines that we were really in love with, and shorten our skirts in our costumes, make it more sex appeal because we're in Vegas. And yeah, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. Yeah. And so that was the last job that I did for for a while as far as professional dancing. I'm really just going on a tangent. Am I doing the right thing right now?
Great.
Okay, just doing great. What was the initial question? I'm supposed to be getting to how I began channeling.
Yes. Well, I was curious about that personally because I had a moment the other night where I woke up and felt like a clear, like, go to your computer and start typing. And I was like, oh, I'm tired. So I went back to sleep. But then the next thing happened and I actually got my ass up and got my iPad.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Did you read it the next morning?
I did, and it was beautiful. I actually shared it on the Lightweavers Network, and I'm pretty sure it was like Mother Mary. It was pretty beautiful, but I don't know if it was just, it was my first time. I'm starting to trust and learn to what happens when I'm channeling or whatever I call what this process is. It's like I'll just hear it word by word, and I just have to keep trusting that the sentence will make sense. And so I've been practicing just getting a word at a time and writing it down. And then I sort of laugh because it's like there's a lot of puns and it's kind of funny, and whoever is like, I don't know if it's just me communicating with me or who it is exactly. Part of me still feels like I'm making it up, but part of me feels like there's someone smarter than me writing it.
Yeah, totally. So I totally recognize all of those feelings. This realization happened for me the first time I heard someone channeling verbally. This was through a documentary called Tuning In. Has anyone seen it? Tuning In. I recommend it if you're interested. But so I started watching this documentary, and the second I heard someone channeling verbally, I just, my whole body just became alert like a tuning fork. And I knew that whomsoever, because there were many humans interviewed for this documentary, there's one specific human, and I knew the entities talking to her were the same ones that had been talking to me since I was a kid. I knew it. And I just, I remember the people around me thought it was very strange. And so we didn't end up finishing the documentary because, someone else was like, this is really weird. Let's watch something else. So I ended up going into my car and just streaming the rest of it for myself. And I sobbed. I broke down and just started sobbing because I realized this feeling, which I always just claimed was a feeling, not that that's any less or more than what it actually is, but to know with certainty that we are conscious entities that can make choices like we can, that can speak in the way that we can, not necessarily exactly in the way that we can. It's difficult to translate, but that would be like what you're describing, Eliza, that kind of not knowing if the words are coming from you or if your brain is interfering or what's going on there. It is trippy. It's trippy to try and take these concepts that are funneling into you and put them back out into the world as English, as the English language, which is so limiting. It's so limiting. And so you're going to get variations, I'm sure. Like say you and I were sitting right next to each other, Eliza, and we were receiving the exact same funnel of energy, receiving the exact same information. It's going to definitely come out of you differently than it comes out of me because of the, by nature, you are the translation point. You are the tipping point for that energy. And as it starts coming out of you, it's going to manifest in your own unique presence, with your own unique flair. Like handwriting, your handwriting is going to look different from anyone else's, and you channeling is going to look different from anyone else's. And that is why we are all unique individuals, this expression into the universe of total uniqueness. There is no one exactly like you with the same exact cellular structure that you have. And that is the very reason why we are here. Being us is to have that, just magnitude of uniqueness in the world.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just feel so much becoming clearer in terms of like when I create art, when I dance, when I'm really in those flow states, and I feel an energy coming through me, and then it just comes out like a poem is just like poof, or a drawing is just like, here it is, this is what this energy is. I guess I've always known in some way that that's channeling, we're channeling that energy, but I never really trusted myself to channel like voices or words of other beings. But I feel like that's really what I felt called to empower others to do in the light weavers. It was like I want us all to open up our channel to connect to our bodies, and also like recognize the energy without and within, and to let that creative energy flow through us. That feels like a huge part of my life's purpose. And I think it's so fascinating that each of us who are here tonight, one of the things that we realized we wanted to talk to you about was dance, because we're all dancers and like intuitive movers. And I don't know if you really know like everyone else's backstory, but I'll let them, maybe it'd be cool to hear from the other ladies too, like what ways you all think you, like experiences you've had channeling, especially I'm sure with dance, but I'm just curious. Yeah, this is something that's on my mind, so just whatever you guys feel like, just passing the baton, I guess.
Gaitrie, so you start. I want to hear from you.
Oh my gosh. Way to put me on the spot there.
Sorry.
Where did you start? Okay. So, I focus a lot. So my primary focus of movement is Indian dance, Bollywood. I have been playing with a little bit more than what I was, I guess trained to do, or what I've seeked satisfaction in. Because for me, Indian dance really gets me to my roots. And since I wasn't born in India, I didn't grow up with a guru, learning classical Indian dance. Um, it's my way to like reconnect with this culture and this tradition that I feel so separated from. I was born in South America, so I'm not necessarily looked at as like a typical Indian girl. And that's been one of my battles, kind of why I choose to do Indian dance. Um, and for me, when I think like when I'm choreographing, I'm not necessarily channeling the way how I would if I'm just moving. And I'm learning to trust just a very organic, natural movement, that it doesn't have to look a certain way. Like it doesn't have to look like traditional Bhangra or Garba or whatever form of dance I'm trying to bring out. It just needs to be me moving, right, with the music, feeling it, not worrying so much about the beats, but more of the energy and emotion that I'm feeling within the pieces. Or if there is no music and I'm just moving freely, to trust that. And sometimes I find it hard to move because I'm afraid of what it will look like, or who's judging or whatnot. So in terms of channeling, I'm trying to trust that more. I haven't my entire life. I really actually hidden away from those things growing up because it just didn't seem normal.
Yeah.
You would just be the oddball. I think one time my sister said, she's like, well, you're like that because you're adopted. Like it was like a hard. And I was just like, well, no, I'm not, but okay.
Are you truly?
No, I'm not.
Your sister's just being a jerk.
Yeah, she was. So it's like those things, like and then it also makes you second guess yourself or second guess your abilities, and so you just try to push it away because people don't understand it, or you don't understand it because you never really had a guide, right? You never had someone to kind of show you the way.
Mm.
Some people may have, but some people just have not. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm so happy for you, honestly, to be in that space and to have such technique in your repertoire of Indian dance and Bollywood. It's kind of, I studied ballet a bit, and that kind of rigid technical structure is very hard to break away from, and find that movement that just feels, that just is, that movement that just is without the visual. I totally relate. It took a long time, and even still, um, you know, dancing in front of mirrors. Did you dance in front of mirrors growing up?
I didn't at first because I was really just dancing in my room by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Dun da da da. Oh, that's perfect for choreographing.
yeah. So I'm teaching classes, but yeah, no, I spend a lot of time in this room. I spend a lot of time here. It's like my little space, and so does the rest of the family, I guess. But
Yeah, choreographing I always found to be so interesting because you are channeling, you are bringing through those feelings and those emotions, but your analytical brain has to still be awake. You have to still be assessing what that looks like. Can that dancer make it to that space in time with the music? Or your analytic brain has to still be alive when, it probably would feel epically better to just disappear into the void and just dance the way you want to. And it's so interesting to see different choreographers work in varying states of that.
and I think that's one of my biggest things because I guess I choreograph slightly different than most technique-based choreographers, and I have 3 technique-based choreographers in my performance troupe. And sometimes, like, I've been asked, they're like, how do you get your arm to do that? Like that, like how do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know, my body just does this. Or even just kind of like making sure that I am, you know, following the music as they would. And I think that's one of sometimes the things that I'm battling because I'm trying to please or appease to their style, where that makes me let go of what I'm truly trying to embody, right? When I'm truly feel from the music. So yeah, so I could definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. I love it.
Oh, well, thank you for listening and sharing.
Yeah.
Now pick on someone else.
Joy.
Wow. There's so many things. There's so many things coming up. This is really interesting topic of conversation for me right now. Okay, so I started dancing when I was a very young child, but what I really wanted to do was be a singer. And through various like programming and conditioning, I basically was told or given this idea that that wasn't a practical thing to do. So all of this energy that I had that I wanted to use with my voice, I channeled into movement. And so I did the technique thing, and I had a lot of bad training that like put my body in weird alignments. And so there was a lot of pain. And then by the time I figured it out, I had a lot of work to do. But there was a very specific moment when there was a shift, and I worked with this dance company called Zephyr. And we were doing this really like abstract modern movement. We were being the waterfall. And like, there was something about that like spoke to me on such a deep level. I was like, oh my gosh, I can be a process. And there's something that just like ignited this thing in me. And I ended up at the International House of Prayer for 6 months doing an internship. We did, it was so perfect for me now that I look back on it. We would do the night watch. And so from midnight to 6 a.m., we were in the prayer house helping they would do 24/7 prayer and worship non-denominational, like all people from all over the world would come together and pray and worship, and their music was actually spontaneous music that they would create with prayers. So this just lit me up, because I was like, oh, this is improvisation. Like everything is improvisation, is just literally opening up to the spirit flowing through. And like, oh, but even before I went there, I had had this experience in church where I felt this pulling at my heart, like this tug, this thread would just pull me. And I would stand there in worship and just be like wobbling, like, what is going on? And the pastor was like, follow the thread. I can see something's happening to you, just follow it. And so it moved into this, first it was a run, and then it was this dance. I would just do this crazy dancing, and the spirit would just move through me, and my body would move in all these crazy, beautiful, exhilarating ways. And so I ended up at the International House of Prayer because I was like, oh, I don't know, just was led there. And I ended up in the dance troupe, which we would, it was such an incredible process. They had this spontaneous choreography. They had these hand signals that we would send to each other so that we could do spontaneous choreography together. There was a process for how that worked with the way the music worked. And so we could create these choruses in the midst of improvising everything. The music is improvised, the dance is improvised, but we can still find these spontaneous moments of unison. And that was an interesting journey too, because I had these moments where I was like, I was just so free, and I would just let this energy move through my body. And then there was these people coming to me like, oh, you can't move your head like that. You can't move your hips like that. You can't do these kinds of movements because people are watching you and you're distracting them. And I'm like, I'm just in full surrender moving my body. And then they're like, wait, you have to do it like this. Wait, you have to do it like this. So I auditioned for the music team. And I was able, oh my God, like what ended up coming through me was so powerful, because I think the things I was singing, the people on the team that I ended up on had never really heard somebody do before. Like I would just let go, and it was like dancing through my voice. And so all these things happened, and I just like shut all of that away for a while and like went back to normal life. And I think I had like a really dark period for a bunch of years after that. But now what's so interesting is I feel like I've integrated all of that. And now, especially with my work with the Sophia Code by Kaya Ra, also like now with this, you know, clearing out the projections of others and finding out more who I am and how I'm connected to my higher self, and how I have this direct connection with source, and the way that it moves through me and into my body. And I've recognized how it comes through in not only movement has been my voice for a long time, but this specific movement has been challenging me to use my voice more. So written word, I've started doing automatic writing, and some of the stuff that comes through my body, I'm just like, oh my God, this came through me, like what? Or like, and now since I've started stepping out leading more, my voice as well, like my analytical brain, like you're talking about with the choreography, it just literally shuts off sometimes, and these words come through me, and I'm like, did we record that? Because I don't know what I just said. And sometimes I'll know, and some, you know, but that's so interesting.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So because you are such a pure vessel, and these things flow through you, and I'm wondering, do you ever, when you feel it flowing through you and it comes out in different facets, if it comes out in movement, or if it comes out in song, or in speaking, do you feel like they could all happen at once, or that you're shifting the energy and it kind of locks into one manifestation or the other?
It's really interesting that you asked that question, because I can recognize that when I was younger and I shut off my voice because I was told it wasn't practical, I blocked that off. So I could only move it through my body in a physical way. But now that I'm consciously opening these channels, I do feel like it's possible to do all of these things. Like I have these visions. I'm starting to get visions also of like how to expand the channel even more and allow all of these things to come through. So I know that's possible. I just also like, I don't think I've created the space exactly for it yet, but I've seen what it looks like, and I feel like I'm learning how to prepare my body to do that and like understand more what that entails. But yeah, like I know that that's possible. And this is why it's so interesting to have this conversation with movement bodied humans who are also clearly like, we're all artists, like we all do artwork, we write, we draw, we paint, we connect in various ways. I feel like we all have some kind of voice, even like a sense of beauty. Like this is all divine feminine creation. So yeah, I feel like I think you said this, like we are all channels. So really it can come through in whatever way there are pathways available for it. And for people who are dance bodies, it's easy to come through that way because we already have that pathway, as long as we're open to disconnecting that analytical mind point. And it took me having that moment of like, I'm a waterfall, I'm a waterfall, I'm a waterfall, like I'm the water moving through me, to be like, oh, I don't have to be anything other than water right now, to like turn that off. And I feel like that allowed my body to receive more information, to be able to use it in different ways.
Yeah, I think we're going to start seeing a great shift in dancers beginning to channel in other ways. And in my opinion, song is epically beautiful, and all of these other manifestations of channeling are so beautiful, but dancers for me are the most in tune, because it's our vessel, our physical form. You're carrying around your history, your ancestral history, and your direct connection to source through your DNA, through your cells. And to be a human who has been trained or not trained to dance in this way, and to allow your cells to regenerate and to move so freely, it's there. And for me, my verbal channeling was just so right on the edge of my grasp, because I already knew how to bring the energies through. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in the coming years as we start to expand and awaken at rapid speeds. I think a lot of dancers are going to realize that they can expand in these ways.
And not even just to channel something through, but what that just, I just saw this vision of like, we're not just dancing, we're not just expressing, we're physically moving energy. Like when we're in tune with our channel and we can feel and sense that energy moving through us. Like I've had experiences where I'm just expressing my body, but I can feel I'm creating spheres, and I'm opening doors, and I'm breaking through walls, and I'm tearing things down. And this started at the International House of Prayer. So I was prayer dancing, and now I'm understanding more how to consciously create that. So like, as I allow my mind to be like in alignment with the will of God, basically, like I can use my conscious co-creation and actually, shatter obstacles that are in the pathway. And you know what I mean? Like using the voice with that, though.
Yep.
Creates
That's
more power.
That's what it is. Honestly, the way that a individual interacts at a group of improv dancers, that is a direct metaphor for this incarnation, for every human's life. If I'm entering a room full of dancers, there are many choices I can make. I can choose to be completely limp, dead, dull, not have any of my energy come through, and I end up being tossed around by the energies of others. I have no say in where I go. I am tossed around by the energies of others. I can choose to stand my ground and hold structure and react to the others. And I can choose to be passive, but also be active in structure, so that I am not pushed around, but I am a clear and pure vessel to pass energy on to others. Or I can choose to take that energy and change it however the F I want to change it, and then put it back out into the universe. I could choose to couple up. I could choose to trio up. And this, like, so many times when I'm speaking to others, I find myself wanting to use this metaphor because it is so directly related to how we live our lives. If you find yourself, and you will meet someone on the street that's like this, that's like, I don't know how I ended up here in this space, I don't know what I'm going to do next, that kind of like, we've all been there. There's no judgment in that space, but that's the essence of not bringing your own energy and being tossed around by life. And gosh, it's just dancers, man. They've got something going on.
Embodiment, a conscious choice to embody fullness of what's possible. Yeah, it's really...
You're seeing things. I can see you. Like, this is what Joy does, for those of you that can't see what's going on. Her eyes just kind of drift off to the left, and that she's seeing so much. Where's Suzie?
Oh, we can't hear you, Eliza. Eliza, you're
Oh,
muted.
Eliza, you're muted.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Suzie.
Is the microphone, is it cutting in and out? I mean,
Yeah.
sound?
No, we can hear you.
Sounds good.
Well, hey. Everybody.
Well, hey, how are you, love? You have such a sexy voice on right now.
Okay.
Like, this is just more normal.
I don't want to say anything to like ruin the allure.
Right. You're like, hey, I am here, and all you see is this dark screen right now.
Yeah, I need to put a super hot image up there.
No one will object.
Well, oh my.
No pressure. Just as you are.
Sure. Okay, cool.
Are you feeling... Sorry.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
Are you feeling well in your space, or are you feeling like you want to speak with us because I miss you?
It's good to listen. It is good to listen. I re-listened to our first podcast, and I left feeling like I overtalked. When you're talking, you're not really learning anything new, so listening is this new skill that I'm developing. But it's an interesting thing. I have mixed emotions when I think about dancing, because I miss dancing and hearing everything you were saying, Angela, about dancing in a group. Just recently, in the past year, I would even say half of a year, just the last 6 months, I really, really found myself benefiting so much from group dancing. Eliza in Buffalo, correct me if I'm wrong, or jump in at any time, Eliza, if you'd like to clarify, but there was an ecstatic dance group started in Buffalo a while ago, and I believe Eliza was one of the founders of it in our delightful city of Buffalo, New York. And I remember seeing informational signs about it and being super curious, but it wasn't until just this past summer, some friends of ours, Matthew and Olivia, they were very encouraging of me to join. It was, I think, on Saturday nights, and then it moved to Tuesday nights. And it was this process of getting comfortable. I was always attending, but I would watch everybody just eyes closed, dancing around the space. And I felt very reserved. And I realized what was happening was it was just triggering to when I was younger. I loved dancing, but I was awful at choreographed dancing. I just, I went into tap early on. I always wanted to be a ballet dancer, but that just wasn't the thing that I got into. And I did it alongside my best friend, and he just practiced all the time and became this incredible dancer. And a couple of recitals, I just felt like the costumes were off. I couldn't remember the steps. I got super frustrated with myself. I knew I had this potential, but I actually hated it. I ended up just, because I would watch the other dancers, and instead of enjoying their movements, I wished that I had those. I wished that I could be good or want to go home and practice. But there was something, and this isn't just dance, this has to do with music and art as well. So it's interesting because now as an adult, I'm 38 years old, and I feel old to be jumping into these things like fresh and new, because just recently this dance experience, as I would just keep showing up and kind of shaking off that young early development association with dance and learning that, you know, okay, I'm not a quote unquote dancer. I quote unquote failed as, you know, a competitive or professional dancer, or just didn't choose to use that as an avenue. I find it now so amazing because I have these very intense emotions that up until just recently I've been wanting to, I realized that I need to, as we've been saying, channel that energy somewhere. And so I find that the fiery songs of the elemental dance movement, it gave me this opportunity to be really primal about what I was feeling. And the more I kept showing up and the more the faces in our group were familiar, and there grew to be this trust that it was a safe space at Soul Rise, which is a place in Buffalo. And it just became this opening for me, kind of this new discovery of, wow, I actually don't have to have a choreographed plan, and it doesn't need to look like everybody else's. I have my own unique way of moving, and it changes for each song. And now I can really appreciate watching other people dancing, doing things that I maybe can't do or don't do, and seeing it as now this interactive experience where I can watch and I can interact and I can be watched and learn to be comfortable being watched. And so, yeah, I would find myself really, you know, kind of embarrassingly, but it was wonderful to not feel so embarrassed. I would often embody these animals. Like in music, I would want to be on all fours and I would want to crawl around and I would want to act like a cat, or, you know, even sometimes a gorilla, or really embarrassing things. Like all of a sudden I was like, what would I be if I was like a crab, you know? And I don't know, it was just really cool to discover dance as an adult, you know, and then actually find play in it. I have been learning to play again through dance, because it's not so much the way that I do it, the way that I've experienced it lately. It's not about what it looks like. It is about how it feels. And that's a first for me, being, you know, as an adult, just so self-conscious about everything.
I'm so happy for you. That's an amazing feeling, that opening.
Yeah, and joint dancing, when you were saying that you can choose to link up with someone or many people, or choose to dance on your own, I started to find that, you know, a partnership in dancing was really fun to play off that other person's energy, and movement, and then this whole life global experience happened. And so what I was finding really healing, and we've talked before about ritual and practice, that was becoming ritual and practice for me. And then that just drastically changed. It ended, and it's morphed into this screen virtual world. And so I found that I kind of fell off of it, really. It just wasn't, it's fun dancing. Well, I shouldn't say I fell off of it. Maybe I just, the past week has been real challenging, and I forget these things that are so helpful to just sink in. But there's always been just that real comparison nature, that's so automatic, and it's kind of crippling, not to sound too dramatic, but I would love to learn to counteract that with something more helpful and beneficial, rather than the wishing I could move like someone else or do something more naturally like someone else, and really embody your own experience. And I have glimpses of that through dance community, which is why I miss it and I love it.
Well, if it's any consolation, I definitely don't feel like you're late in the game, because my sister and I talk about this a lot, because she had an experience similar to you growing up. She always kind of compared herself to the other dancers. She never felt like she had the, you know, the same ease of dance that others may have had. And she loved it. And we were a dance family, so she was kind of like forced to still take classes in her high school years when she didn't really want to. But she had an entirely different experience as a kid than I did, of course. But, you know, even like, say, imagine, Suzie, that you like continued down a pathway of being a professional dancer, you would have ended up in the same place that you are now, experiencing that reopening, because what we grew up in, that structure of dance, as well-meaning as our teachers were and always are, I love all of my teachers, but it wasn't this spiritual dance. It wasn't this what I'm trying to say is, I, as an adult, experienced the same awakening, opening feeling that you're describing the first time I walked into an ecstatic dance. And it didn't matter how many years of like professionalism or what have you I had experienced. And Joy, you said something like this too. You said, I think I had a dark period after that or something. And this is exactly how I word that. When I left professional dance, I'll say I definitely had a dark period. And that was it, Suzie. That was like us, like, realizing that all of these systems that we had followed through this deeper love didn't reflect anything true to our tribal natural systems. And honestly, because the first ecstatic dance I walked into was Oakland, which is like 200 people. It's epic. And I turned the corner. I walked around the corner and saw this mass of humans and heard this deep vibration of sound and saw the DJ up there just in it. And I fell to my knees, like how you read in these biblical stories when the burning bush presents itself in front of you. I fell to my knees to see this. And I think I must have been either 27, 28. And it like, I'd been dancing my whole freaking life. And I never had that opening throughout. I had glimpses of it, but what I'm trying to say is, I think we are all going to end up there. We're all going to end up in that primal moving state, and bring it on. That's what I say.
Yeah, me too.
And we'll be back. Gosh, we are going to dance in massive groups again. We'll be back.
Yeah, I really want to keep saying that into reality.
I'm with you. I will hold down that fort with you.
Okay, cool.
There's no other way. I am not leaving this incarnation without another massive, sweaty, body on body experience of dance.
Well said.
You know.
Yeah, dance technique does not equal dance communication, which that ecstatic expression is more of a communication, and it creates more possibility for telepathic link than does specifically dance technique, because it's so specific to each of our own bodies. We have our own unique expression that expresses and communicates. So I love that you pointed that out, Angela.
Yeah, I think technique can facilitate an understanding, and it can carry you. If you are, I'll find myself in an ecstatic dance, and if I'm feeling the flow and I'm feeling the spiral coming from the core of the earth, I do have my training to fall back on me sometimes, that I won't fall over, that I can actually kind of hold that spiral, and I can hold those flows coming through me. But, all bets are off. Like, I've danced with you guys have probably done so too. In ecstatic dance, I've partnered up with some people that most certainly didn't grow up with, like, training in any sort of way. And it's the most connected dance I've ever experienced, and I've also counterly had improv sessions with my technical dancers that have yielded no fun results, zero fun results. like, everyone's thinking about what they look like, or oh my gosh, we used to have auditions when I was a kid where it was like we would have improv auditions. Like, the counterintuitive nature of what I just said is horrible. Like, you're going to improv, and if your improv looks well, we're going to give you a scholarship. What? That sounds terrible, doesn't it? Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, for me, the journey to dance was all intuitive led, and I think it's so interesting to meet up now that I'm sort of a facilitator of dance spaces, and I'm always trying to bring more people in, and I often meet a ton of dancers who are more technical based, and they're terrified of coming to a more improv based experience, because they're like, well, what do I do? Like, I don't, it's just so fascinating. Whereas I'm terrified of more technical, like I was like Suzie, where I took classes when I was really little, and I just couldn't remember. It never made sense to me. My body felt weird trying to do something someone else was telling me to do. Whereas dancing has been such medicine for me, and really, I think I've lived so much of my life in the imaginal realms, and so much joy for me has been in finding ways to like open that channel, whether it's like painting or photography or music. And when I found dance as a medium to tap into that and feel it with my whole body, it was literally the most ecstatic experience that I'd had, like sober, you know, and like,
That's a good point.
you know.
Yeah. Sober.
Well, better than drugs, you know what I mean? Because it's so vital and it's so real, and it feels like it's like a drug. I mean, there's a reason they call it ecstatic dance, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such medicine, and being able to facilitate spaces. I don't know if you know my background, but I became a facilitator of Dancing Freedom, where it's like shamanic, somatic, expressive, ecstatic dance. So we're moving through the elements and really calling in guides and calling on the elements, each one of them embodying them, because we are the earth. And the I guess the theory behind it is so vast, and there's so much information. And I think it's taken me probably like 6-7 years being a facilitator myself, and then going to Australia last year and redoing the training and being part of the facilitation team, to even just feel like I'm starting to like begin to understand the technology that they're teaching us to embody. And the only way to really learn it, because it is, you know, you have the mental manual in front of you, and I could read it a million times, but until I've actually embodied it and I'm experiencing it, there's really no way to understand. But it is one of those things that, as Joy was saying, like as we're embodying these channels of energy collectively, individually, and then learning how to assimilate and move with them, we are, you know, it is like the perfect metaphor for what we're doing here. But beyond a metaphor, it's like literally, this is what we're doing here. We're dancing ourselves as the earth back into one organism, where we're feeding off of each other's energy instead of fighting with each other, and learning to allow the waves and allow the sensations, even the ones that are uncomfortable. But once we begin to move with it and let it out or process it or know that it's safe, it's crazy, the stuff that'll come through my body. Like all of a sudden I feel myself moving in sort of patterns of like African tribal dance that I've never learned. Like I don't know how I knew how to do this movement. And then, you know, with the eyes closed, like feeling memories and understandings and connections, and like everything just sort of becoming clearer. But when I try to explain it to someone, you know, even now I feel like it's so I'm failing, I'm just grasping. But it's one of the sweetest, most connected experiences I've ever had. And that's, you know, since I was a child, that's really all I've ever wanted. When people ask you like, what is it that you want, you know, it was never like, I want a car, or like I want a certain career. It was just like, I wanted to feel connected. I wanted something that was missing to come back to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that for me like happens through dance. Not all the time, but
yeah.
You know.
That's such a good point, because, you know, you find yourself being like dance is such a metaphor for life, but then you're like, the next step of that is it just life? Are we just, bringing to mind that the Killers song, "Are we human or are we dancer?"
Mm, interesting. I always hated that song, but it just hit me, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that.
This is amazing. One of the things that came up, Eliza, when you were talking is, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys, dancing is going to replace war. I was like, dancing, freedom, peace, like connecting with other humans who might in other realms be considered an enemy, if you're talking politics or culture or all of those messy things about being human that can get in the way by the programming where we've been taught or what we see on television, that certain groups, it being here in Naples, Florida is an interesting thing too, because there's just so many cultures that are misunderstood, the disparity, the difference between two. It seems like it's so easy to make an enemy out of a human just because it's easy to give them a label as Cuban or Mexican or just something other than who you are by this one word that doesn't even come close to describing who this person or group of people really are. But it makes it easier to make enemies. But the wonderful thing about dancing is when you are just in a room and the intention is to feel the music and embody it, everyone, you aren't enemies with any of those people. You can't be, well, maybe you can, but it hasn't been my experience. So I don't know. I just
Yes, red table, yes.
I feel like
and stuff, they do like the battles and like people are legit dancing. That's become such a cultural way for people to literally like hash it out in a safe, supportive environment. That's like, it is a battle, so to speak. I think of like sports, there's a reason like our culture is so obsessed with sports. That's kind of like dance.
Well,
it's
capoeira.
Moving, and who's the more graceful team, and how are they flowing with that energy? Like they're literally passing a ball of energy from one to each other. Like who does it the best? Who's the fastest? Like who's the most efficient? Like are they flowing as one? It's like, oh my God, that's literally what they're doing.
And what happens in football specifically when someone scores a touchdown, or what? There's usually some sort of celebratory dance. It's like, yeah.
You can't help it. You have to.
Yeah, because you feel the energy. It's just, you just want to explode.
Are we human or are we dancer? Are we remembering, each of us, that our true nature and expression is to move our entire forms when we react to anything?
This is so so interesting. Well, the way that phrase is, are we human or are we dancer, kind of suggests that dancer is not human or is beyond human. And also, I had this medical intuitive session the other day, and and this is like so pertains to everything we've been talking about, because I was told, and I've never heard anything like this before. This woman told me, she's like, these beings are coming in talking through her. She's like, this is the most far out thing I've ever heard, because it was like way out in the galaxy. These beings came through to tell me why I'm feeling the things that I'm feeling. And they're like, the place that you came from, she was like, I can't call it a planet. It's more like a nebula. And she said, and I don't even know what that means yet, because I haven't had the time to really process it. But when she explained this, she said, the way that form manifests in this like outer reality from here is that we don't have like physical matter. Our beings are more like air and water merged together. So each of us are individual. We have individual like personality expression, but we are all kind of like intermingled with each other. Like we don't have as much of a physical separation as we do in human form. So and what she was saying is, in this reality, basically every person is a reflection of the whole collective, and the whole collective is a reflection of every person. So if there is one, and you can't even call it a person, because it's basically, to me, like one big contact dance is reality, because there's like forms merging and emerging and like and reflecting and absorbing and responding constantly. There's always physical contact, even though it's not exactly physical the way that we experience physical now. So when you're saying, Eliza, what I want is connection, that to me is like, that's how I feel. And that makes me wonder, like, did we all just come here and say, hey, let's do this on earth and see what it's like to be in physical form, and like experience through, like, how do we transfer our connection through this physical form in a similar way, but obviously more tangible? And that brings in this whole like telepathy and like all the like powers and all these things, but like taking this physical form and like finding our way of communication and finding our connection. And this whole like quarantine, like COVID thing, I feel like is really initiating us into this, because when I sit in sacred circle with beings on a Zoom call, for instance, and I'm like, okay, let's hold hands, and everybody intends to hold hands, I can feel hands in my hands. And I feel like we all want to feel hands in our hands. So we do it and we feel it. And it's because like we can actually reach beyond these like the physical limitations, partially because we already experienced that, like we are one blob of existence. And because like I feel like that's also like how we evolve as humans. We're like realizing that we may have these like perceived separations, but we're not actually separate, because we're all made of the same material, even if it has a denser matter form in this reality. So I just felt like I had to share that, because I'm like, we're from the same nebula.
So I'm going to share with you right now, because you said nebula, and I see this red energy just whooshing past your head and toward me through the screen. And I have my sky guide with me at all times, because I see things and I don't effing know the names of all the stars. And so sometimes I'm trying to bring through messages and it's only visual, and I can't describe it. I have no words. And I brought up my sky guide because you said nebula, and I'm like, there it is. And I pointed on your nebula, and it's called the Heart Nebula, as NASA describes it. Can we see? I don't know if this is going to read well.
It's reflecting us. It's funny.
Okay, I'm sorry. But it's, I believe you should look into the energies of the Heart Nebula, and I don't know what that is, and we'll find out together, I'm sure.
That's amazing. I just had to share that, because I feel like all of these things that we're feeling, like this disconnect that we feel, you know, Suzie, you were talking about this too. Like, I want to dance with other people. And like, you know, like I have such a need for touch. Like it just explained my whole life growing up. Like my mother is not a touchy person. She's not like compassionate, not really understanding, not like generous in any physical or like emotional kind of way. And it was like so traumatic to be raised that way. And like I'm going through a healing process of this to like being able to recognize like I came from a place where we were never separate from each other. Like we were always connected. So to like have a physical relationship that's like, even I'm suckling your breast and I feel no connection, you know, like my entire, it's like, but then to meet somebody like Eliza and Angela and God, all four of you, like I feel so connected to you, and I don't, you know, it's like, I don't know, it just is so blowing my mind to have such a this experience of physical form.
I can't imagine not hugging you as a toddler. First of all, if you like ran into my space as a toddler, I would just like scoop you up and twirl you around.
Oh my God.
I'm going to tell a story real quick, because my mother is a preschool dance teacher, and I find this really beautiful. My mother is the opposite, Joy. My mother is like scoopy, against your bosom. Everyone come into my space. I will hold you. I will rock you. And yesterday was my mother's birthday, and she she's a legend where we live. I can't go anywhere without someone being like, Miss Charlene. Her name is Charlene. And they could be 30 years old because she's been doing this for 40 years. And they're like, you taught me when I was 3 and I'll never forget you helped my heart to open, all these beautiful things. And she hasn't seen her babies in 2 months. She's been doing this with 2-year-olds, Zoom with 2-year-olds. Their moms kind of push them up to the screen and she's like waving scarves at them. It's like the cutest thing. But what we did yesterday for her birthday was we did a surprise parade. We surprised her with, driving past her house with birthday balloons and signs. And I sent out the invitation and so many more people responded than I anticipated. And I'm going to send you guys this video later because it's just so sweet. These like 1.5-year-olds like showing up and like, Miss Charlie, like handing a balloon out the window, and my mom is sobbing, and it was just the sweetest thing. But she said after this like epic surprise birthday parade that she died inside to not touch them. She died, like she said, it's so much harder when I just saw them face to face and I didn't, how am I supposed to look at a 2-year-old and not scoop them into my arms? It's going to drive me mad. She just told me this on the phone like 10 minutes ago before this conversation. It's going to drive her insane if she can't continue, to scoop up her babies. The end.
I wish she was my mom.
Oh. She'll take you. She'll take you in an instant. That's her mantra. The more the merrier.
I mean, I love my mom. She's a great human. I have a different love language, and it was very challenging to not have that need met as a child and not understand,
Yeah.
And now, not for some of us, not have it met into adulthood. I was just finding that connection through the dance community. I mean, hugs every time I would walk in that were so connecting, like, wow, this is my family, because I haven't always felt super connected with my family or a family of other outside energetic beings, so sometimes life can feel very lonely. And I do really crave connection. And it was interesting because we were on a call, before one of these Zoom meetings, and I didn't even know exactly what it was that I needed, and Angela even responded saying like, I can tell you just want to be hugged. Like if I could, I would. And it was so interesting because I cried and I cried and I cried. And I just realized, yeah, hugging yourself doesn't feel the same. Like I just wanted to be enveloped. And I remember when I was a kid though, my grandma Platino, I have her middle name, Mary. And she was just straight from Italy. And she just was such a big person, like big physically, definitely wide as she was tall. And just when I was a kid though, I was so not used to hugging. And she would just want to hug and like move you around from side to side and just like hold you. And I would always kind of like squirm out of it. I liked it to a point, and then I would kind of like squirm out of it. And it was really interesting because I kind of wrote something to her after her death, and it was kind of just like a journal entry, but it ended up being maybe a letter to her oldest son, as I was remembering these memories coming up. And I was like, my biggest regret is not just staying in those hugs and just like hugging back. Like I mean it. Like I didn't wanting her to let go first, so it's interesting, just this whole notion. I mean, just where we are in the planet right now, these times are just so fascinating, and sometimes it's so disheartening. And I try and just, keep optimistic, like it's okay, eventually. There was the Spanish flu, there have been things like this that rocked the people at that time, their reality, and then things kind of simmer down, or I don't know. There was also this, when I was a kid, what was really moving was there's a movie, Gorillas in the Mist. And Joy, when you were talking about picturing holding hands, like maybe that is the new, kind of the new evolution is to really just imagine the connection and the feeling. If we are all connected energetically, perhaps there can be almost like a what am I, like, beyond the physical to actually reconnect with the physical. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but in Gorillas in the Mist, what I just found so amazing was I love hands. I love hands. And this woman, it wasn't Jake Goodall, but it was another, yeah, I know, I was holding mine up, but you couldn't see. But this woman, she was trying to study these gorillas, and the top male was very aggressive and wouldn't really let her get close. And so just over time, she just kept showing up and being not threatening, always with her hands open. When she would sit, if she wasn't taking notes, she would just sit with her hands open. And finally one day, the scene, oh, it just brought me to tears. The gorilla came over and sat next to her and just put his hand in hers. And there was never any other communication that she had except holding that gorilla's hand. And I don't know, that image and that everything melts my heart. And the rest of the movie is a little devastating, so I won't talk about it. But yeah, I don't know, there's just, there's something about the physical connection. I don't know how we move forward from here.
I love that you're mentioning that, Suzie, because one of the things that was given to me, like I was being told in this session that because of where I've come from, I have a lot of physical pain in my body because I have a lot of stuff that I can't process because I don't have that reflection of the all. That's what I'm looking for to help me process all the things. And so one of the suggestions was to like make it a practice to visualize my community, to like actually see the threads of connection, to like think of each person that I feel connected with, and to like even see a map or whatever I need to do, but to like create that visualization in my mind and pull it into my body. And also I just wanted to say, in regards to that, I had a like total freak out moment one day, and I was talking with Angela on the phone, and I just started crying, and she's like, come here, let me hold you. And it was just the way she said it. I felt her wrap her arms around me, and I like leaned my head against the wall, but I felt like my head was against her chest, and I could feel her holding me. And I just cried and cried and cried. And I realized we don't actually like, I mean, there's nothing that can substitute the physical connection, but if the physical is really just a construct of our mind anyways, then why can't we transcend that? Like, this is the perfect opportunity to do that. So like, I'm thinking of you, Suzie, and I'm like, I'm gonna hard snuggle the shit out of you. And I'm just, like gonna squeeze you, so like, just come here. And I'm just like, and I can feel my like face in the back of your neck, like in your hair, just like squeezing you.
So aggressive.
I think you coined that phrase. I like hard snuggle.
I like the hard snuggle. It's the like, just like, I gotta squeeze you, you know?
I love everything that's happening right now.
With
Just
all,
had to put that out there for you.
so with all this talk about like touching and stuff like that, I'm actually the opposite, where I'm not a very touchy feely kind of person.
Oh my God, what's that like? Tell me.
Somewhere I feel like for me it's energy, right? Like just really tapping into someone's energy and just kind of sensing their vibe through that way. And even through this whole like this whole like virtual realm that we're currently in right now, I feel that I can like still get the satisfaction that I need, or that my particular being needs, to understand someone, right? To through their energy, whether it's like through screen or whatnot, and just seeing like I guess as a dancer, also understanding how like the body language is and how somebody's holding themselves in that space, like, you know, and that for me is like I'm okay with that. I do, you know, like I guess I get my physical touches more from like my kids, because that's to me, like I have 3 kids, and so like they're very touchy. They want to snuggle, they want to cuddle, they're like mommy mommy mommy. And I think for me, like that's satisfying. Typically I'm not a very touchy person, and I find it not like I push anyone away. Like I know if someone needs like a hug. I'm a good hugger. I think one of my friends called me, she's like, you just have that nurturing hug. And I don't give it away that easily, I guess. So I really hold space for people through energy. So I don't, if that resonates with anyone at all.
I want you to hug me. That's what resonates with me. I want to meet you in person and you're going to hug me and I'm going to experience it. That's the only thing I take from that right now. I know that you're like saying really, you know, the whole time I'm just like, I want to hug her. I want to hug her. I want to hug her. Someday. No, that is wildly fascinating. And I think that there's like, I don't know, there's, if anyone, I hope no one has ever been like, that's the wrong way to be. You should want to touch people more. It's just like such a, you know, it's a unique variation of who you are because you're still just like thriving with physicality, you know, you're through your dance, through your children, you just have this physical essence where, you know, probably the humans that interact with you would never say she's not a physical hugger or she's not, you know, we wouldn't describe you that way because of how palpable your physical energy is.
That's been one of the things that's hindering like a lot of previous friendships. It's like some people have this expectation, but I can't really fulfill that expectation because I do it in a different manner. Right? So so I think like that's one of the things about me that I'm still trying to figure out.
Love languages are a thing.
Yes, absolutely. Jay Shetty actually just talked about, I don't know if anybody follows him, but I follow him. He talks about like the love language and understanding people's love language and how they really speak it and how they want to be heard with it. And I think that you know, just even listening to that particular episode of his, like really put a lot of things into perspective to me of like, you know, some people do need a little bit more comfort, physical comfort than others. So yeah, just honoring that, respecting that, and really vibing with it. Yeah.
I can't believe it's like 10:44 already. The time just like flew by.
Isn't it? Wow.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Great conversation, y'all.
Start to wind down so the episode's not like super long, but
we'll break it into 2 segments.
Part 1.
Yeah.
Part 2 though.
Remember when there used to be 2 VHSs?
Oh, you mean the reverse side or something?
Like no, like Titanic. If you bought the film Titanic, it's so long that it had 2 VHSs.
Yes.
That's all.
Great example because I had Titanic.
I never watched the second VHS. It was like iceberg. Bye.
Like the second Lord of the Rings. Like nah, it's just like all the violence and war.
I'm good.
Like cute little hobbit homes and stuff. That's all I really want, anyways.
Same thing with Avatar. As soon as Home Tree goes down, I'm out.
My God, I know.
Hate that part. It makes me so angry.
But at least they express it so well with their vocalizations. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, can we have a part 2? Okay, cool.
What did Suzie
I'm happy to conclude. I said, can we have a part 2?
I think it'll be part 3 if we break this one into 2 episodes. We continued. Parts 3 and 4.
No matter how many times we divide it, it's still one.
You have a microphone you can drop.
Boom, bitches.
We're all one.
That's it. What is a video anyways? It's not gonna be on tape, it's just digital. Never mind, I'm stopping. Okay.
Zoolander quote?
Edit.
I felt like you were just doing a Zoolander impression. Did I make that up? Anyone remember that film?
That's possible that some Zoolander-esque energy came out of me because I used to watch that movie a lot with my brothers. I always do the big mug and he's like, and then? I think like the one part we always do.
That's funny.
Yeah. Suzie, did you have the poem, the trust poem that you wanted to read? Is there anything else that feels like it wants to be shared before we kind of start wrapping up in terms of like dance and everything that we were kind of sharing?
Just for me, the theme of trust, which I kind of forgot about, but is kind of very poignant in this moment. I think rather than talking about trust, I myself found a very big element of trust in the four of you tonight.
Feels really good to have you on our roller coaster.
Glad to be here. What would the photo look like? You know, they always take a picture when you're on the roller coaster.
Oh
like
my
what?
God, hilarious. Yeah, Joy, pretty much.
It depends on where the F they put that camera, because some of these days I would not look well.
Those are the best.
Yeah, that's why my video's off.
We've already established that you look radiant.
Oh, well, thank you.
You hot, Suzie.
So here, let me try in my sexy.
Oh yeah.
When I can't see you, it's like, it's really effective. I don't know why it's like
1-800 call Suzie.
All right, so I was going to read a different one, and as I was flipping through to find it, this one came through, and I think in honor of the Heart Nebula, Joy here, I think I'll read this one. It feels more right. So it's a meditation, and it's coming from Melanie Beatty, Journey to the Heart, from June 19th. Your heart will guide you through. If you feel confused, alone, unsure of what to do next, go back to a place you can trust, your heart. In matters of work, money, love, play, just go back to your heart. The issues that arise in your life can be dealt with from the heart. You will be guided through gently, safely, with love and truth along the path that's best for you. Are you feeling upset? Do you wonder why things aren't working out? Are you unsure of the map, uncertain of the next step, wondering how to untangle the mess of the past? The answer isn't in your head, it's in your heart. It's not outside of you, although sometimes we receive guidance from others. The answer you're seeking, the guidance you're looking for, needs to feel right to you. It needs to resonate with your heart. Your heart is the center, the balance point for your emotions, your intellect, and your soul. Your heart is safe. Go back to your heart. It will always lead you home. Even when you're far from home.
That's my dog. Can you hear my dog panting really loudly? I didn't want you to think it was me.
Sorry.
Oh my God. Joy, randomly today, I was wondering how old you were, and then I was like, Joy's like 5. She's like a 5-year-old spirit, but she's like in this body. It really doesn't matter what age she is. She's just so bright and like she's 5. Like your soul spirit age. I don't know why that just.
But also like 1 million.
Oh, so that's the thing about 5-year-olds. The wisdom that they carry within them, you know, they're just spouting out this solid.
Man, then they hit kindergarten and it's all downhill from there.
The system ruins them.
Not anymore. Bye-bye, system. I'm old enough, Eliza. Old enough.
Like to say,
I have to sing this little ditty that came through. I was actually channeling the other day. It doesn't happen very often, but they gave me this song, and it's very simply, all you need need remember is surrender and say yes. Mm.
Suzie.
Yeah! Light weavers.
It's an excellent jingle. On that note, I must log out.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much for being here with us. What a
Thanks
treat.
for having me. Have me back anytime.
Wonderful.
Word.